Hey guys, I'm Kasara, and today we're going to have my January week 1 reading vlog. I wanted to start this vlog out with one of my wrapped books. So one of my goals this year is to kind of clear out books from the old shelves that I wasn't really sure that I wanted to read. So I wrapped all of those books up, and I'm going to try and read one of them per week. If you want more information on that, I will link up in the cards my 2019 reading goals. I ended up unwrapping Pawn of Prophecy by David Eddings. This is a high fantasy book. I hope you guys enjoyed this vlog, so let's just get into it. It is Tuesday, January 1st. Happy New Year, everyone. So on Sunday, I finished the audiobook of The Power of Habit. I forgot to include this on my reading wrap-up, but I really enjoyed the audiobook. This book wasn't what I was expecting in a really good way. I was expecting this to be more of a self-help style book, which I thought would be a really great book to read right before the new year, but it was definitely more of a well-researched book. It talks about habits in ways that I wouldn't have thought to think about them that way. It definitely kind of touched my heart a few times. There were a few times when I started feeling myself get emotional about the stories that it was talking about, and I don't get emotional about books very often. So I absolutely love the book. I think it's a book that everyone should read. So when I finished the audiobook of The Power of Habit, I had to start a new audiobook because I didn't have time to read a physical book, but I had a lot of time to read an audiobook, and I didn't have one that I didn't have a new one that I really wanted to read. So I decided to pick up one of my rereads that I had planned for December that I hadn't gotten to, which is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I've never reread this book, so the first time around I read it was maybe 3 years ago. I read this book for the first time, and I honestly don't remember that much about it, but I just got so engrossed in this audiobook. I could not put it down. I would get home and I would have time to read something physical, and I just wanted to continue on with the audiobook, how good it is, which I don't remember being that engrossed the first time around. So I don't know, maybe it's nostalgia or something, but I really like this book right now. So basically, in The Name of the Wind, we're following a character named Kvothe, who is an innkeeper but has lived a very notorious life, and a chronicler comes to the inn and wants to tell his story. He says he's going to spend 3 days telling his story to the chronicler who's going to write about it. And so in The Name of the Wind, it's the first day of the story. So it's basically his childhood, how he grew up, and the struggles that he went through because he was a very poor child. He was also orphaned at a very young age. And he goes to university to become an arcanist. So it's just following through that story, which sounds very typical, fantasy tropes, but it is definitely a very compelling read. I love the way that he writes it, so maybe that's why I was really engrossed in the story. But because I was so enmeshed in that world, I kind of put my other fantasy books on hold until I finished this audiobook. For now, I'm just going to be pausing on those fantasy books. So those three are The Blinding Knife by Brent Weeks, which is the second novel in the Lightbringer series, Fire and Blood by George R. R. Martin, which is the prequel to A Song of Ice and Fire, and The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien, which is the second novel in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So those three I will definitely be getting to again later this month, but for now, I'm just going to put them on hold until I finish this audiobook. I haven't decided whether I'm going to move on to The Wise Man's Fear afterwards because I didn't really plan on reading too many rereads in January. But if I'm really engrossed in the book, then I might continue on. But I'm kind of leaning away from it because there are a lot of books that I want to get to in January. As for reading physical books, I really didn't have any time until last night. But last night, I just wasn't feeling to read the books that I had. Like I said, I was reading 3 high fantasy books that I just didn't want to change the world that I was reading at the time. And I was just feeling like reading something light and quick. So I decided to pick up Verity by Colleen Hoover. And Colleen Hoover is an author that I've read most of her books by. Her books are very hit or miss for me. I either really, really like them or really just don't like them at all. I wasn't sure what to expect going into this book, but Verity is about a struggling writer whose mother just died. She gets an offer to finish a series of novels by a very famous author who will not be able to continue on writing the series. So I don't know how this is going to go, but I plan on continuing reading that today, and maybe I'll get into some of my January TBR because there are definitely some books that I'm really excited for. So I just finished Verity by Colleen Hoover. I did not do my research when I decided to read this book. I thought it would be like all of her other books, which are contemporary romance novels. This was not a romance novel. I mean, there is romance in it, but it was definitely more of a thriller. I should have realized that from the beginning because the very beginning is like the meet cute of the story, and it's a rather bloody meet cute, so I should have expected the rest of the story to be like that, but I just didn't really expect it. We're following the character named Lowen, who is a struggling author. Her mother died about a week before the story starts. She gets an offer to finish a series for Verity Crawford, who is a very famous and successful author, but can no longer finish the series for medical reasons. And at the same time, she's also being evicted from her apartment. Verity Crawford's husband, Jeremy, is the guy in the story in which she has this strong attraction to, and he offers to let her stay at the house while she's going through his wife's office to, finish the story. And I was just getting the same vibes from this book that I was from Rebecca, which I read last month, which is a classic romantic suspense novel, is kind of the genre they say. For me, it feels just like a thriller. I don't read a whole lot of thrillers, so that's just how it felt to me. And I was getting the exact same vibes from this book as I was for that book. But I thought it was just a coincidence. I didn't think that it was actually supposed to be a thriller. I thought it would end up differently. I thought the story was going in a different direction, but then it went into the thriller direction. It was really interesting. Lowen finds an autobiography that Verity wrote in which she is not a very good person. So it's kind of her figuring out different things that happen, and it was just a very compelling read. That being said, even though it was compelling, it wasn't amazing, if that makes sense. I didn't really feel so much that there was a substance behind the story like I feel with some of her other novels. Like It Ends With Us, for example, was the first novel I read last year, and it just completely blew me away because it taught me something that I didn't really expect it to teach me, which I actually read that one in one day on the first of the year last year too, which is kind of funny that I started this year off the same way as last year. So as I was finishing up the book towards the end, I definitely expected to rate it somewhere near a 3.5 to 4 star range. But then the last 2 chapters happened and my entire opinion of the books completely changed. It definitely turned everything on a head, and I ended up giving it 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. It is Wednesday, January 2nd. So yesterday I started The Book Thief. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I love the narration from Death's perspective. It's very interesting. So The Book Thief is set in Nazi Germany in 1939, and all that's happened so far is that her mother has given her away to a foster home. Her mother was trying to give away her brother and her, but her brother actually died on the trip to the foster home. So that's literally all that's happened so far. So far, I found it really compelling. I didn't have a whole lot of time to read last night, but I'm super excited to get to that tonight. Earlier today, I managed to finish The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is a reread for me. I absolutely loved it as much as the first time around, probably even more than the first time around. I gave it 5 stars again. I decided not to continue on with The Wise Man's Fear because I'm just not in a reread mood anymore. I'm always in the reread mood at the end of the year, but at the beginning of the new year, it's just I completely flip switches and I'm not feeling to read it anymore. And there's just a lot of new stuff that I want to read instead. So I decided to pick up When True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So last year I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I absolutely enjoyed it. So I was really interested in getting some of the author's other books. One True Loves was one of them that I found to have a really interesting concept. Our main character fell in love and married like the love of her life, and about a year after they were married, his helicopter goes down in the Pacific Ocean and he is presumed dead. So she spends 3 years grieving for him and then finally moving on, and she falls in love again, who she believes to be her other true love. And then about 2 weeks after she's engaged to this other guy, her husband is found to have been living on an island in the Pacific Ocean this whole time. It's definitely a very interesting concept. I'm about halfway done with it already. It's only an 8-hour audiobook, and so far I'm really loving it. Her first husband has just come back, and I can't wait to finish the book. It is an audiobook though, so I don't think I'm going to continue on tonight because I do have time to read a physical book, and I always try to prioritize the physical books over the audiobooks. So I'll probably read more of The Book Thief tonight, and I might pick up one of the fantasy books that I had put on hold for a little while, or my book of the week. I have to get to that soon. Hey guys, so it is Thursday, January 3rd. You know how I mentioned last night that I would prioritize my physical reading? Well, that didn't happen. I was really tired, so I decided to just go lay down on my bed and continue listening to the audiobook until I fell asleep. I had about half an hour left in the audiobook by the time I fell asleep. This morning, I just listened to the rest of it. I'm honestly really disappointed in this book. The first half was very compelling, and everything was just building up to the second half when Jesse, the main character's husband, finally comes home and finds her engaged to another man. And that scene where he finds out is very intense, but it all kind of goes downhill from there. Like, that scene was probably like the height of the entire book, and I wanted it to be heartbreaking and gut-wrenching and all those other emotions that you feel when you read a book like this, but I just didn't feel any of that. I felt like everything just happened too easily and ended too quickly, and then everything just wrapped up very nicely, like with a little tight bow on it. It just didn't work that well for me, so I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. I'm actually gonna head out in a moment to take a jog, and I decided to pick up Educated by Tara Westover. This is an audiobook that I've had on hold for maybe 3 or 4 months now, so I'm really excited to get to it. It is a memoir about growing up uneducated. So the author never went to school, but now she has gone to college. She has gotten many degrees. I think she is a PhD now. So it's just a memoir basically of her childhood and how her education has shaped her life. So far, I'm really enjoying it. It's written like fiction. It's not written like nonfiction. So it's very compelling and interesting, and I'm excited to see what happens next. I'm going to have more time to read physical books today. So I think I'm going to start Pawn of Prophecy today by David Eddings. So I'm not as much of in a fantasy mood as I was when I unwrapped this book. This is the first wrapped book that I picked up, and it's super short. It's less than 300 pages, and it's high fantasy, which is right there in my comfort zone. So if I can't read this one, then my reading goal is just gonna be a complete fail. So I think I can start this one today at least. Hey guys, so I had to pause reading Educated by Tara Westover because the dad is just making me really angry right now. He puts his children in danger so often. It's incredibly annoying and frustrating, and I don't even know how he can call himself a dad with some of the things that he's doing. Like, it's definitely child abuse, and it was just making me angry, so I had to stop. So I started reading Pawn of Prophecy, which is my wrapped book for this week. This is the first book in the Belgariad series by David Eddings. I've never read anything by him before, and he's a kind of a classic high fantasy author. So far, I'm really enjoying it. It's definitely written in kind of the older style, similar to Lord of the Rings. So it was copyrighted in 1982. So it is a little bit of the older style. It's not as modern as some of the other books that I've read recently, but so far I'm liking it. I haven't gotten that far into it. I've only read like the first chapter, but it seems like it's off to a good start. So I think I'll probably end up liking this book, which makes me really happy. I also got a little bit more of The Book Thief read, only about this far into it. So far all that's happened is that Lysel, our main character, has learned to read. They've talked a little bit about Mein Kampf and Nazis, and we finally, like at the end of the last chapter, started talking a little bit about communists and Stalin. So I expect that we'll get more into that in the coming chapters, but so far we haven't gotten that far into it. Hey guys, so it's Saturday, January 5th, and I did not get as much reading done at the end of the week as I wanted to. I didn't really have a whole lot of time to read physical books, but I did make some progress on my audiobooks. I finished Educated by Tara Westover. I don't really know how to feel about this book because it is an incredibly moving book. I just really didn't like her family at all, which I guess is the point of the book. I was getting like flashbacks to a book that I read last year. The book that I read last year was My Story by Elizabeth Smart. Elizabeth Smart is a woman who was kidnapped as a child, so her parents and her family felt a lot like the kidnappers from that book, so it kind of made me uncomfortable, but as for Educated, it was very similar to that, but obviously she wasn't kidnapped as a child. That's just how she was raised, and I do think that she did a really great job with the memoir, and I really enjoyed it. After I finished that audiobook, I picked up The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton, and I've gotten pretty far into it now, and so far I am loving it. It is fantastic. So this book basically is about the death of Evelyn Hardcastle. She dies, and the main character wakes up in a different person's body every day, and he has to solve the mystery of her death. So far, it's very engaging, and I really like it. So that's all I have for you guys right now, and I'll see you guys later. Bye. For the week, I ended up finishing 5 books. That's if you count Sunday and Monday, even though they were last year. They were still part of this week. So the 5 books that I finished this week were The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, Verity by Colleen Hoover, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and Educated by Tara Westover. Let's see how far I got into Pawn of Prophecy, which is the wrapped book for this week. And I'm on page 23. The week is not over yet. I still have a few hours, and so far I'm really liking this book, and I want to keep it. So there are 262 pages in this book. So that means I have to be on page 131 in order to keep this book. So I'm going to spend the rest of the night and going to try and read those 100 pages. I don't think it'll be that hard. If I do meet this goal, I'll film a few seconds of footage to let you guys know. There's one more thing that I want to do before I go, and that is to unwrap the book for next week. So I picked a book here. I picked a little bit bigger of a book than I did last week because I felt like I was kind of copping out a little bit last week. I still haven't finished that book, so maybe not that much. But I didn't pick an overly large one because I'm still scared of this goal. Let's see what it is. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. So excited. It's The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith. This is a YA contemporary, and I'm so excited for this one because it's going to be so fast to get through because I just breezed through YA contemporaries, so I don't think this one's going to be a problem. So that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching this vlog. I hope you really enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! Really quick, before you guys go, I'm officially on page 139 of Pawn of Prophecy. That is more than 50% of the books. That means I get to keep this book, and I'm actually really enjoying it. It's a really fast read. So week 1 of the wrap challenge is a success. Bye guys, for reals this time.